Okay, so let's just dive right into this. Why on earth are we still auditing for privacy and security completely separately when at their core, they literally share the exact same goal? For years, right, organizations have treated data privacy and InfoSec as these two completely isolated silos. You've got one team over here sweating over privacy regulations, and then another team down the hall building firewalls and access controls. But honestly, this fragmented approach is just incredibly inefficient. It's redundant, and frankly, it leaves some really dangerous gaps in your compliance and security posture. So today, we're going to solve that.
Welcome to this explainer. Today we are demystifying the intersection of two absolute powerhouses in the regulatory world, ISO/IEC 42001-2023 and the General Data Protection Regulation, or as we all know it, GDPR. We're going to see exactly how bringing these two frameworks together creates this incredibly strong, unified shield for your data.
So here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, two frameworks, one goal. 2, mapping GDPR to ISO. 3, the lead auditor's role. And 4, documenting integrated compliance. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, two frameworks, one goal.
You know, at the end of the day, these two frameworks are really just two sides of the exact same coin. They share a singular, absolutely crucial mission, and that is protecting sensitive data. On one side, you have ISO 42001. This provides the comprehensive guidelines for establishing your Information Security Management System, your ISMS. Its primary focus is that classic CIA triad, protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of all your information assets. Then on the flip side, GDPR is just laser-focused on safeguarding the personal data and the privacy rights of individuals. Now, in our current era of digital transformation, you just cannot view information security and data privacy as competing interests. No way. You literally cannot guarantee privacy without robust security controls already in place. They absolutely have to operate simultaneously to prevent breaches.
Moving right along to Section 2, mapping GDPR to ISO. Let's visually merge these two worlds. Let's take GDPR's principle of data minimization. This basically dictates that you only collect the absolute bare minimum amount of personal data necessary for a specific purpose. Now compare that to ISO 42001, which mandates strict risk and access controls, essentially implementing the principle of least privilege. To put that into perspective, let's look at a real-world scenario, like processing employee health records. Under GDPR, you minimize the data you actually collect. But under ISO, you use strict access controls to ensure that only authorized medical personnel can even lay eyes on that data. So you see, by implementing the ISO access control, you are practically enforcing that GDPR data minimization requirement. It's a perfect match.
And this builds directly into our next principle, which is purpose limitation. GDPR insists that data is used strictly for specified legitimate purposes, right? It can't just be repurposed without someone's consent. But how does an auditor actually go about verifying this? Well, they look directly at the ISO 42001 information security policies. The ISO standard actively advocates for clear definitions of the scope and the purpose for which any information is processed. So the auditor simply checks the scope defined right there within the organization's ISMS policies. That verifies that GDPR's purpose limitation is actively being enforced.
Okay, next up is accountability and transparency. Now, GDPR requires organizations to actively inform subjects about exactly how their data is handled, and essentially to take responsibility for it. But here's the thing, transparency isn't just a nice promise, it requires actual proof. And that proof relies entirely on the rigorous documentation and audit trails that are mandated by ISO 42001. Having detailed evidence of your policies, your risk assessments, and your security controls, that is exactly what allows an organization to demonstrate the accountability that GDPR so heavily demands.
Just think about this quote for a second. Accountability requires that organizations take responsibility for ensuring compliance with data protection laws and best practices. There's a really heavy ethical weight to this responsibility. Both of these frameworks demand that organizations do a whole lot more than just make empty promises. They practically have to prove their commitment to protecting individuals. It's really all about building trust through completely verifiable action.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. Section 3, the lead auditor's role. So if we look at this chronologically, an auditor's tactical action plan to evaluate an organization's integrated compliance looks exactly like this. Step 1. Review the integrated data protection and security policies, just to ensure total alignment. Step 2. Assess those risk management practices. Are both privacy and security risks actually being evaluated together? Step 3. Verify the actual physical implementation of security controls, things like encryption and firewalls, to prove the data is technically safe. And finally, step 4, evaluate the breach response procedures for when, things inevitably go wrong.
And speaking of things going wrong, let's talk about incident response. GDPR strictly mandates a 72-hour window for reporting a data breach to supervisory authorities. 72 hours, that is a relentlessly tight timeline. The clock is literally ticking. But here is the absolute beauty of integrated compliance. An ISO 42001 ISMS provides the exact operational framework you need to meet that strict deadline. The established incident response procedures already within the ISMS allow a company to quickly identify a breach, assess its severity, and notify the right stakeholders. It fulfills the GDPR requirements smoothly, efficiently, and most importantly, without the complete panic.
Which brings us to our final section. Section 4. Documenting integrated compliance.
Now we're getting into what I like to call the holy trinity of integrated compliance paperwork. And we are starting with the RoPA, the Record of Processing Activities. Basically, this is a comprehensive GDPR document that forces you to lay out exactly what data categories you have, why you're processing them, what your legal basis is, who is receiving the data, and how long you're keeping it. It's the foundational document for proving data processing transparency. Really, think of it like the ultimate map of your entire data landscape.
Okay, document number 2 is the DPIA, the Data Protection Impact Assessment. GDPR requires this bad boy whenever data processing poses a high risk to an individual's rights. You have to detail the risks and state exactly, step by step, how you are going to mitigate them. And what's really fantastic here is how perfectly this aligns with ISO 42001's broader mandate for organizational risk assessment. Integrating your DPIAs right into your IMSS risk treatment plans, that is a massive efficiency win.
And then document number 3 is the DPA, the Data Processing Agreement. This is the contract that's required anytime you share data with a third-party vendor. You can't just hand over data and hope for the best, right? This details the processing scope, security measures, and sub-processor rules. Under ISO 42001, managing third-party risk is absolutely vital. So the DPA acts as your primary tool to govern vendor management and ensure external partners uphold your internal security and privacy standards.
Now, if you are going to take a screenshot of one single thing from this explainer today, this matrix is it. It connects our 3 core documents side by side to show their direct ISMS alignment. Look at this. The RoPA aligns seamlessly with information security policies and audit trails. The DPIA aligns perfectly with risk management and treatment plans. And the DPA maps directly over to vendor management and security controls. It's brilliant! Fulfilling a GDPR requirement inherently supports an ISO ISMS objective, and vice versa.
So, how do we put this all together practically, without doing double the work? Well, the key is streamlining your audit process. First up, cross-reference your RoPA directly with your ISO audit reports. Second, conduct combined audits. Please don't audit privacy on Tuesday and then security on Thursday. Assess them simultaneously so you can actually see how the controls overlap. And finally, establish a unified reporting framework so all your compliance documentation speaks a single, consistent language for both standards. Okay, so we've mapped the principles, we've defined the auditor roles, and we've outlined the critical documentation. I want to leave you with this final, really vital question. Are your organization's security and privacy practices still operating as isolated silos, or have you successfully merged them into a unified shield protecting your data? The modern digital landscape absolutely demands integration. So take a hard look at your compliance strategies today and ask yourself if it's time to finally build that bridge.